Alright guys, so if you haven't been able to tell lately, I've been really getting back into IEMs and wired headphones. I'm just kind of going in the direction of kind of dabbling a little bit more into audiophile gear. And today's pair is at least pulling us back more into a budget realm. This pair of IEMs that we're going to check out, which is the FIIO JH5s, they only come in at $79, but they have some pretty interesting things about them that I think definitely makes them worth talking about. Now, the first thing is it's an affordable, high-res audio certified pair of IEMs. It is using multiple drivers. In fact, it's using a 10mm carbon-based dynamic driver mixed with 4 custom balanced armature drivers. And they're also using a 3-channel system so that everything's kind of funneling in to go bass into one channel, mid into another channel, and then treble separated into another. And what that allows these to do is to take advantage of each frequency without trying to muddy or congest everything that you're listening to. So that is a huge plus. The IEM itself is fairly small. I would say it's maybe a small to medium size IEM. It is using a 3D printed acrylic on the part that touches your skin, which is very, very smooth. And it also has a zinc alloy faceplate. Now I have the silver version, but it also comes in black. I will say that it picks up fingerprints extremely easily. So, you know, if you're somebody that's bothered by that, I think that's something you might want to know. And then as far as the accessories that it comes with, it does come with a hard case, but it does not come with your typical hard case. It comes with this little sliding drawer that looks like it pretty much just came out of a jewelry box. And this is what allows you to house the ear tips that they've included. Now they do include 6 sets of silicone ear tips, and it's 2 different styles. You have one that's made to be geared more towards a balanced sound, and then another one that's geared towards pulling out bass a little bit more. So I like that you have 2 different options. Me personally, I stuck with the ones that are geared towards bass. I'm a bass head, but again, I like that I have that option right out of the box. And then as far as the cable they've included, it does come with a silver plated copper cable. It is using the 2-pin connection, which is extremely common. You probably, if you're already into IEMs, already have some of these cables lying around. And then the part that plugs into devices is a simple 3.5mm headphone jack. So it's very common. You can just plug it into your phone. If your phone has a headphone jack, plug it into a tablet or a laptop. I am kind of disappointed that they didn't include a 1/4-inch adapter. And that's mainly because most people that use IEMs and headphones are plugging into amps. And most amps and DACs require a 1/4-inch plug-in. So, you know, maybe you already have one lying around and, you know, you didn't need one. But for people that are getting into IEMs or getting into audiophile equipment, it's just nice that these things are included. But speaking of an amp, now this is one thing that I definitely want to touch on with this pair. It has an impedance level of only 13 ohms with a sensitivity of 111 decibels, which means this pair actually is very easy to drive. And not only to get decent amount of volume, just plugging straight into a device without an amp or a DAC, I found that the bass, mids, and the treble were pretty well represented just as it was. Now, obviously, once I plugged it into an amp, it definitely brought things out a lot more. That's really what an amp is for. And the bass got much punchier, and the mids pulled out a little bit more, and the treble had this really nice brightness to it. And that's really the best way to explain the sound on these. It's not a V-shaped sound signature because the mids are boosted a little bit, which allows male and female vocalists and acoustic instruments and things like that to kind of have more of a presence, where in other IEMs and headphones it kind of gets lost a little bit. But the bass surprisingly had a decent amount of punch. That it does a really good job with sub bass. I would not say that it represents like kind of having that subwoofer type feel. That's just not what these are. But the bass hits pretty hard, but it's very fast. And that means that it lends itself well against genres like metal or rock or anything where there's just a bunch going on. And then as far as the treble goes, now I think this is where it's either going to really grab people or it may lose some others, because the treble on these get pretty bright, and at times I felt like it could get a little harsh. You could start to hear that sibilant sound with S's. I actually like this whenever you have an overly aggressive bass, because it just is fun to listen to, because if you're gonna have bass that's hitting you very hard, you don't want to feel like you're losing out in details because the treble tends to suffer. And that is not the case here, which again makes these a fun pair to listen to, but it also makes this a pair that I wouldn't recommend to purists. Anybody that's looking for a flat or neutral sound or a balanced sound, even though the ear tips that I said earlier that are geared towards balance, this still is not going to be close to a balanced sounding pair of IEMs. Now they also have a vent on the back of these, which is allowing the sound to breathe a little bit. And I think that's what gives the bass as much space that these have. It allows these to hit without it sounding overly boomy or come in and just ruin the rest of the sound. So when it comes to the soundstage and the sound imaging, because of this, it makes you feel like you are in a very large room. There's a lot of space in the sound, and then being able to tell where different sounds are coming from, this pair handles with no issue. But I will say this, because of that little vent, I did notice if you're gonna listen to these at higher volume, the sound tends to leak a little bit. Where with most IEMs, the sound is always just trapped and it's not leaking where people around you can hear it. And still, for the most part, people aren't going to be able to hear it. But if you're listening at pretty loud volumes, they're going to be able to start to hear that you're listening to something. So keep that in mind if you're somebody that generally likes to listen in a more quiet environment. It's not going to be as isolated as other IEMs that I normally check out on the channel. So my overall opinion, this one's pretty easy. I think this is an incredible value at $79. And I think what even adds to the value is this pair does not need an amp or a DAC if you don't necessarily want to invest in one. If you're somebody that's just getting into IEMs or somebody that's wanting to kind of like dip their toes into audiophile equipment, this is a good start. Again, I would recommend it, pretty much for anybody. And I think if you already have an amp or a DAC, it just really obviously brings things out a lot more in this pair. But it's nice to know that you don't necessarily have to have one. But guys, that wraps up my quick video on the FIIO Jade Audio JH5s. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.